Recently, I've been thinking about this question. Have you ever asked someone to hold you accountable? Well, what does that mean? I know I have asked that question. But I'm starting to wonder if that's actually a good question to ask. You know, in the United States, we live in a litigious society. In fact, there's an article on simplemost.com that lists the craziest lawsuits that actually got awarded. Now, let me tell you about some of these. One such case came in 2016 when a New York man went after a basketball maker after his ball lost some of its air prematurely. Marcos accused Russell Brands, the maker of Spalding Never Flat basketballs, of misleading him when his ball went flat, despite advertisements saying the ball would stay inflated for a year. Now, it's certainly worth asking for a refund, but Marcos wanted $5 million for the faulty product. The case is ongoing. In 2016, a Russian man sued the American video game company Bethesda Softworks because he said his addiction to the game Fallout 4 ruined his life. The man claimed he lost his job, his wife, and his friends because he couldn't stop playing the game. Notice the word addiction. And you've probably heard Red Bull's slogan that the energy drink gives you wings, a claim that obviously isn't meant to be taken literally, but still landed the company some kind of physical performance boost. In 2014, the company actually agreed to settle the lawsuit for $13 million, offering unsatisfied customers either a check for $10 or a certificate of $15 for Red Bull drinks. Now, we might look at some of those and shake our head over the silliness. But let's talk about that. Remember that term addiction? What about these excuses? Because that's what each one of these lawsuits was based on, an excuse. According to Merriam-Webster, an excuse is justification for why you didn't do something. It's placing the blame on someone else. Well, that's victim mentality. When you screw up, and everyone does, do you look for an excuse for why you did what you did, or are you going to take responsibility for your actions? You know, there's plenty of opportunities to find an excuse today, and some of them can often be legitimate. But that doesn't mean you should accept that excuse and use that for why you didn't do what you said you were going to do. You see, the flip side of excuses is accountability. And this is what I've been wrestling with. Accountability means taking ownership of your actions. It means that whatever I do, whatever I say, my thoughts, whatever I move forward in, I'm the one who's responsible for them. You know, there's an old saying that, say what you mean and mean what you say. And it used to be that a handshake was as good as a contract. No longer today. Because men that shook hands, women that shook hands on something that they told another person they would do, they backed it up with their actions. They knew it meant their reputation. So let's talk about the different kinds of accountability. The first one kind of gets me often, and that is I'm accountable to myself. And how are you accountable to yourself? Well, we're still in the first quarter of 2020, and I'm sure most of you set some goals. Now we're at the end of February, and probably a lot of those goals have just been abandoned. But goals are something where you control the outcome. It's not dependent on someone else. It's not dependent on circumstances. But you are the one who sets that. You're the one who says, I need to do this for whatever reason. So you actually control that outcome. Now, anytime you set a goal, you're going to hit what's called resistance, or another author puts it that you have to overcome the monsters that stand in your way. That happens every time you determine you're going to make a change in the way you're behaving, talking, thinking, something in your business, whatever. But those monsters can be overcome in order to help you meet those goals. The Apostle Paul in Romans 7 talked about the fact that he had some goals in his life. He had some behaviors, some actions, some attitudes, some thoughts, some words that he wanted to say, but he said there was a big monster in the way, and that monster is sin. It says it affects our behavior. He famously says, those things I want to do, I don't do, and those things I don't want to do, I do, because of sin. But sin is not, don't use that as an excuse. It's the enemy's way to trip us up. It's the monsters he throws in our path to keep us from moving forward, to keep us from keeping our word to ourselves. The second group of people means that we keep our word to others. Have you ever made a promise and you didn't even maybe think about the consequences of it? Well, this happened to me recently. I made a promise to my daughter and son-in-law, and I broke that promise. I made the promise, and I just let it slip out of my mind. Now, that was wrong, and it saddens me that I did that. But when my daughter brought it up to me and said, "You promised to do this," I had to admit that I was breaking that promise. I had to own it. And the problem is when we break a promise is that we damage relationships. We lose trust. And in a business, it can actually harm your business. You can lose accountability. You can lose faith with your customers, because we all know that we like to do business with people we know we can trust. Well, what about in a marriage? Remember that guy who said that the addiction to the video game, he lost his wife? Well, his addiction was probably a medication to cover up some pain. He didn't want to deal with reality. He didn't want to do what he had to do. And I've been there, and so has my husband. You don't want to deal with an issue or issues, or we put something else in front of that which is most, or those that are most important. And we use excuses for why you can't help yourself. Well, I'm addicted. Well, you don't have to be addicted. You can make a choice to come out. You know, when you're in your marriage, you can't hold your husband accountable, and he can't hold you accountable, but you can draw healthy boundaries, and there's a difference in that. Healthy boundaries say, this is what is acceptable to me, and what you do is, that's your boundary, but my boundary is here, and boundaries are all built in love. Viktor Frankl, who was a Jew in the Nazi concentration camps and survived, said, of the time that he was in that concentration camp, he said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. See, he understood that his accountability for his thoughts and his actions were his alone to control. He couldn't control his circumstances or what anyone else chose to do to him or around him, but he could choose how he chose to respond. There are some things that I've learned about accountability in this recovery process, and my husband and I have both learned them. And the first thing is that when we own our actions, when we own our thoughts, and we choose to hold ourselves accountable, we experience freedom. We get to make our choices for forward movement. I also experience freedom because I set my husband free to make his own choices. I'm not responsible for his choices. He is. The second thing is fulfillment. Every time I keep my word to myself or others, I accomplish a goal that I've set, I feel a sense of healthy pride. And every time my husband chooses not to look at porn again, he feels a sense of healthy pride and fulfillment. And it builds our trust with each other. The third thing is faith. Often I cannot accomplish the goals that I set before me. I can't control my actions or my thoughts or my attitudes without God's help. I have to turn to Him and ask Him to give me the strength to choose what is the better way. I also have to trust God that He is going to continue to work in my husband to build the health in him that needs to be built, just like He's doing in me. And every time God answers that prayer, and every time I see a new victory, my faith increases. Well, excuses say you have no choice. But accountability says, I have a choice. I can choose a different path. So my challenge to you today is to listen to your words. Do you have victim language or victor? Are you making excuses or are you taking ownership? I hope that you'll choose today to become a victor in one area of your life where you've been struggling. You can't change them all at once, but pick one. And if you're not sure about setting healthy boundaries, hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com. Kirsten is spelled Kirsten, STEND as in Diane, Samuel, SAMUEL.com. If you type the word boundaries in the search bar, you're going to find several free resources there. And if you still feel like you need additional help, you're not sure what it means to set healthy boundaries or what it means to change from a victim to a victor mentality, click that free consultation button and let's talk. It's a no obligation 30-minute call. Together, we can change from being a victim to a victor. We can choose accountability over excuses. Until next time, have a great day.